Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and today I am inside of the 2D animation workflow area of Blender, and I need to set up my 2D animation references. I need to set up my timing and all of that. So first and foremost, let's get the audio into the scene, because like if I press play right now, we're not hearing anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewind this and then press this little plus right here and go video editing, okay? And so, yes, you can use Blender as a video editor, but I have had no success with that. If you have success with that, great, but for me, no. But this, I only need this for one thing, and so I open up my file browser. This is my default file browser with Windows right here, okay? And I grab the song that I want to use, and I just drop it into the playlist, and we are on frame 0 right there. And so now, the next thing that we need to do is this, okay? If I press play, this is what's going to happen. Okay, notice that it just stopped really abruptly at frame 250, okay? And, you know, we need to be more out here, okay? So over here where it says end, let's just go ahead and scroll that over there. And you can actually see right here, you can see the end of the animation moving right and left over here. Like as I play around with the end, as I scroll on the end there, that's what's going on there. And so now I'm just gonna zoom on in real nice and close to the end here, and I'm just going to tap on this arrow until it's at the end. Okay, on end, you know, it has these little arrows. You can get like really super accurate with these. Okay, and so now I'm going to click on my 2D animation tab and I can press play. Okay, so that's awesome. Okay, I got that all set up and ready. The whole thing plays. Great. So now we need to get our video reference. Now, I use my video editor in order to create my video reference. I film myself with my phone, just doing something really basic. It's kind of embarrassing looking, but basically this is what it is. You don't need anything super fancy. I just needed something that could kind of be a little bit of a reference. You know, I wanted, like this one right here to the right, it's a full body shot. I wanted to kind of record myself doing these motions in order to help me get the timing just right, okay? And to the left here, I have basically kind of a video reference for me to basically see what it looks like for a hand to close, okay? And that'll help me be able to do that. But the thing is I need it in Blender, all right? And like, you can't just file import a video like that. And I've seen some people, they actually go to their camera while inside of object mode. They click on their camera and they go into the object data properties, and I think they add an image and they add, yeah, a movie and stuff like that. And that works. You can use video references like that and even rotoscope if you want. However, it's not very versatile. So let's go edit preferences. Where it says add-ons, click on that. Over here, type in image, and then you'll see import, export, import images as planes. Okay, tick this box right here, and then go ahead and click on this little menu button that we're very familiar from mobile phones, and then press save for preferences and close out. Okay, this makes it so that you can go file, import, image as planes. You can also press shift A while you're in object mode. Image as planes. Let's go ahead and click on image as planes, okay? And so now, you know, Blender 2.83, which just launched. If you don't have it, get it. This file browser that's inside of Blender is absolutely awesome. I love it. So let's go ahead and go into my videos and just go ahead and plant that animation reference in there. In fact, I'm going to rename this to video reference up here at my collections. That way I just have things just a little bit better phrased and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this up and move it actually outside of the camera's view. And now when I go ahead and play, I can actually rotate. Yeah, see that? I'm able to actually rotate around it. It is a three-dimensional object, and you know, I can move it wherever I want. But there's a problem. Let me play that little segment that actually has footage. It's like it's happening in slow motion, and it's really frustrating. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to get this to be 30 frames per second, because that's what I recorded it as, and for some reason when I set it as being 24 frames per second inside of my video editor, which is Olive Video Editor, a free open source video editor. It's really good, except for some reason when I set it to 24 frames per second, it still exports it at 30 frames per second. So what we need to do is we need to go into our output properties and go 30 frames per second right here at frame rate here. Just click on it, 30 frames per second. All right, excellent. So now when we go ahead and play this, okay, so it's happening at a good speed, and having it at 30 frames per second is just fine nowadays. The reason why they did 24 frames per second is because film was really expensive, and making animations, you would be using a lot of film in order to do pencil tests. You know, this is film no one will ever see, and it's not the end product. So in order to save on money, they did 24 frames per second so that there's less footage of film that would need to be wasted. Okay, we don't have to worry about that because we're working digitally, digital film, and so yeah, I mean, it's fine that it's 30 frames per second. I'm okay with that. Okay, so we have everything that we need to set up our timing and everything like that. Okay, and so I'm just going to move this outside of the view again, and I actually did something kind of interesting here. Now you can use rigs inside of Blender. There are some people that have made some rigs for the grease pencil workflow that you can pose and such, but I'm not very familiar with working with rigs inside of Blender. So I have been using Clip Studio Paint so far, and so I just click and drag one of these 3D models into the scene, and I'm able to kind of rotate around him, pan around him, select appendages, and just kind of pose him about in just about any way that I might be able to imagine. And so that's kind of handy, being able to do something like this inside of a drawing program. So yeah, within a short period of time, you can kind of start creating poses and stuff like that, and use something like this as a reference. I can go File, Export, Single Image as PNG or JPEG, and then just go into here inside of Object Mode, press Shift A, Image, Reference, and go to my pictures, Clip Studio Pictures specifically, and then go ahead and click on here. Okay, excellent. So we have this, and so we want to go to the frame at the very beginning, before he appears. Okay, before he appears, okay, we're going to grab this, scale it up, and get it into position right about there. Sounds good. And then so let's get him just before he starts moving his arm. Okay, so this is about the frame where he's going to be moving his arm here. Okay, so frame 117. So let me go back just a bit. Okay, just before he appears, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press I, Lock Rot Scale. Okay, I pressed I on my keyboard and click Lock Rot Scale. Now, Lock Rot Scale is location, rotation, and scale, and you can actually see what that's doing by clicking right here and go Graph Editor. Okay, and you can see that we created these keyframes, these nodes here. All right, and so now we need to go to 117. I just remembered what that frame was. Okay, this is just before the arm starts to move, and so I'm just going to press G and move him over to about right here, and I'm going to press I, Lock Rot Scale, and you can see what it did. And if I need to change anything, I can actually grab one of these nodes here and press G and move it around, and then grab a different one and move it around, grab this one, move it around. You know, you can see what each one does individually, and so that's kind of cool. Alright, so now what I'm thinking about doing is going to the next frame, which is 117, and pressing S to scale this all the way down, and I want this to be really stinking tiny at this point. Okay, and I'm going to press I, Lock Rot Scale. So what have we done so far? Let's go ahead and rewind the animation and press play. Okay, so we're setting up a rough kind of storyboard sort of setup. We're kind of lining out our animation here. And you can see that we can kind of get our keyframes to be a little bit animated, which is awesome. But what I think I'm going to do with this is, I'm going to leave it the way it is. So I'm going to go to frame 118, and okay, the fist closes right on frame 123. Okay, so I'm going to press Shift A and add an image reference, and I'm going to go pose 2. Okay, pose 2 is right here, and maybe I might, okay, I'm going to remember like frame 123. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit, and for some reason I'm not able to see it. So I'm going to go to my first reference image, and I'm going to go into Object Data Properties, click Transparency, and lower the opacity. And then I'm going to click on my second empty. Okay, so actually I'm going to rename this. I'm going to go pose 1. Okay, and then this one is pose 2. Okay, so pose 1, I'm turning it on and off on the screen right now. Pose 2, turning it on and off on the screen right now. Okay, so now I want to get pose 2 and just kind of put it into a position where it looks like it would fit. Alright, that looks good. I'm going to go to the frame where the fist is balled up. Okay, that looks good right there. I'm going to press I, lock rot scale right there. And I'm going to go to the previous frame, and I'm just going to scale it all the way down, just really small. Just really small. Okay, and I'm going to press I, lock rot scale. And so this is what we got so far for the animation. Just going to rewind it and press play. Okay, kind of cool. Alright, so now we need to get to the pose just before he touches the ground, okay? Okay, so we can see that there's this point where the fist is all balled up and then the arm returns back, okay? This one I don't necessarily need to have be exact, okay? With my video reference. I already know that because it's just, I know how everything's going to come together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift A, add an image reference, and I got pose 3 right here. So I'm going to rename that collection as pose 3. Okay, so that's there. Let me go to pose 2 and click transparency and lower its opacity a bit so that I can see pose 3. Pose 3, I'm going to scale it up to about that high, and I think I'm going to move him like to the left a little bit more, like so. And I'm going to press I, lock rot scale, go to the previous frame, press S to scale it down. I'm going to scale it down really, really rinky dinky small, and press I, lock rot scale. Okay, so then I'm going to go to pose 2, and I'm going to scale this out here on frame 146. Okay, and you can see its relationship with the last keyframes that I created here. So I'm going to scale this down and try to get this to kind of match a little bit with pose 3, and I think that looks pretty good. Okay, and I'm going to press I, lock rot scale, and you can see that it created a bunch of new ones. So I'm going to grab these new ones here, press G and then X, and press Shift and drag my mouse until it moves to the frame previous, and then left click. Okay, so this is what that did. Let's go ahead and play the animation. Awesome! It's working out great. The only thing that I don't like is how this disappears. Like pose 1 just disappears. So let's see what needs to happen there. Okay, so I'm going to grab the last little keyframes here, and I think I'm just going to grab them and move them on over to the frame just previous here. Okay, and I'm going to, Control Z. Okay, so this does that. Okay, I'm going to start playing around with these nodes actually and see what they do. Okay, what I'm thinking about doing actually is just deleting all of these right here actually. So the animation here is going like that, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these right here, and just prior to it closing right here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press G, X, and just drag it one frame behind the balled up fist. Okay, so it's going to be like that. Okay, so it's moving and then boom. Okay, so with pose 1, what I want to do here when the balled up fist appears is I'm going to scale it down to being rinky dinky tiny. I, lock rot scale. Okay, so this is what we got. Whoa, that did something weird. Okay, that is not what I want. Press I, lock rot scale on frame 124, and then go to 125 here, and then scale it all the way down because it did something kind of weird. So let me just go I, lock rot scale, and so now we play the animation, and this is what we got. Okay, so we got some timing going on here. Some good timing. Alright, so now we need the pose just before he touches the ground. Okay, so my video reference, okay, that right there, that's just before hitting the ground. Alright, so now I need to press Shift A, image, reference, and pose 4. Okay, let's rename the collection to pose 4. Okay, and pose 3, let's go select that, transparency, and lower its transparency. Okay, what I think is happening though is the balled up fist still appears. So let's go to pose 2, and okay, so the balled up fist is on the same frame. Let's press GX and move it back 1. Okay, cool. And then and I'm on pose 2 here. What I'm going to do at this point is just scale this down on the very next frame. I'm just kind of polishing this a little bit. So Lockrot scale. Alright, and so now I need to find the frame where he's just about to touch down. Okay, cool. So pose 4, this is the frame just before touching the ground. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of get him into position. That looks pretty good right there. And then I'm going to go transparency and lower its opacity a bit. And then I'm going to go to pose 3, which is this pose right here where the arm returns to the body. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the frame previous, press I, Lockrot scale, go to the frame next to that, to the right, and press S and scale this down really small. Okay, and press I, Lockrot scale. And so let's make sure everything's working out just fine. Let's rewind it and play it. Okay, so the only problem is that pose 4 is in the entire animation so far, and I don't really want that. So pose 4 has no information, so I need to find the pose just before touching the ground for pose 4 and press, okay, so I can see where pose 3 disappears and pose 4 needs to appear. So I'm going to press I, Lockrot scale. Previous to that, the frame previous to that, I'm going to scale it down, press I, Lockrot scale, okay? And so now, what we got so far, okay? Let's go ahead and rewind that, press play. Awesome. Okay, so now let's press Shift A, image, reference. We need to go pose 5. Name this collection pose 5. Okay, and let's go ahead and scale it up and get it into position. And maybe play with the transparency a bit so that it's just right. Actually, I think it would be something like that, actually. I think that's what would happen. So now I'm going to press I, Lockrot scale. And I'm going to go to the frame previous to this and scale it down to being rinky-dinky tiny. Press I, Lockrot scale. And on pose 4, just before... Whoa. Actually, I think I'm wrong. Let me go to pose 5. Okay, I think on frame 158, that's where all of this should happen. So I'm just going to grab all of these, press GX, and move them over. Okay? Let me play the animation. Alright, that looks good. So pose 4, what I'm thinking about, the pose 4 is just before hitting the ground, but pose 5 still looks like it's in the wrong position. So I'm gonna move it over here, press I, Lockrot scale. Alright, so pose 3, what I'm going to do on the frame where pose 5 appears, I'm gonna scale it down. Nope, I'm gonna press Ctrl Z a few times. Okay, I'm gonna go to the frame previous to pose 5 appearing, press I, Lockrot scale, go to the frame where pose 5 first appears, press S and scale it way down. Okay, and press I, Lockrot scale. Alright, so now let's take a look at the animation. Okay, that looks good. Okay, that pose right there, I need to get into here. So press Shift A, image, reference, pose 6. Okay, this is the last pose that I got. I'm going to pose him about right there, get him to be about the same size, like so. And I'm going to press I, Lockrot scale. Okay, but I want to play it. I think I'm just going to move this over, pressing GX. Okay, cool. So let's go to the frame previous here. When this pose 6 should appear. Actually, let me rename this to pose 6. Okay, and I'm going to press S to scale it all the way down and press I, lock, rot, scale. And so now let's go ahead and play it. Excellent. Okay, that looks great. Let me go to pose 5 and go to where pose 6 first appears. Okay, pose 6 appears right there. Go to the frame previous, press I, lock, rot, scale. Go a frame ahead, scale it down, I, lock, rot, scale. Okay, so now I have something rough that's in place for me to actually make this animation. So this is how it plays right now. Awesome. Alright, so that is a good way to block out your animation before you actually start animating. Of course, if you have a 3D model inside of Blender that you have all rigged up, go ahead and use that. This is just my workflow, how I'm currently doing it. And of course, you know, it's nice having a 3-dimensional video footage, and you can have as many video planes on your scene as you want, just, you know, playing little reference footages to the timing that you want at the points that you want inside of your animation. That's really handy, really nifty, and I hope that's been helpful for you guys. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me and participate with my community, feel free to join my Discord server. A link is in the video description below. If you'd like to support this channel, there's an image of my mascot in the upper right corner of the screen leads to my Patreon. Any support would be much appreciated. And if you've enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to click on anything else that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.